This is The Drive with Dale Lolley and Matt Williamson on your 24/7 home of the black and gold. SNR, Steelers Nation Radio.
And welcome to The Drive. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson. It is a somewhat chilly Wednesday here in
I can't
Pittsburgh.
get warm for some reason. Yeah. Chilly.
Yeah. Chilly. Steelers Ravens week.
Yeah,
and,
absolutely.
We have our first injury report of the week for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Van Jefferson with a quadricep issue did not practice. That's not expected to be anything serious. Same with Najee Harris and the ankle. That's a day of rest. And Mike Tomlin said that
expected that, right?
Dante Jackson with the hamstring didn't practice. Nick Herbig, a full participant in practice today.
Wow, okay, good.
We know Alex Highsmith is out. He didn't practice. Isaac Seumalo and Cam Hayward were given a day off as rest. And Michael Pruitt with the knee did not practice.
So is Highsmith the only one we're really worried about?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
So they should be pretty good shape. Okay.
Not in bad shape at all. Haven't gotten anything out of the Ravens yet. That's not surprising. They like to
Hamilton, I think, is the one to
play
watch
games.
there.
Yes, that is the one we'll be keeping an eye on with that particular team. And if he doesn't play, it's significant. You dug up some numbers on that.
Yeah, I did. I mean, give me 2 seconds. But the bottom line is their pass defense when he's off the field.
Their pass defense when he's on the field has not been good.
Is really bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when he's off, they allow 9.3 yards per pass attempt.
Not reception.
Not reception. Every time you drop back, you're almost gaining a first down when he's not out there.
That's quite significant.
He's a really good player.
Yeah.
I mean, he's 6'4", runs like a gazelle, super versatile, smart. He's the skeleton key to their defense. Whatever they need him to do.
Yeah, so, if he's unable to play in this one, the Steelers should be able to throw the football, and they should be able to throw the football anyways.
I would think so, yeah.
But he gives them one more guy in that secondary that is capable of
you need to be aware of him a
Yeah.
little bit, right. Or, he's an answer to a lot of problems for them, whether it's slot or deep or whatever. But he would absolutely be a big loss. I think he's one of the top 2 or 3 safeties in the league.
Their defense, we said this yesterday, this is not your father's Ravens defense at all.
No.
If you look at it, and this is just going by the grading on Pro Football Focus.
Okay.
Brandon Stevens, who's one of their outside cornerbacks, he is 102nd out of the 109 cornerbacks in the league this year. Marcus Williams, their free safety, he is 87th out of 87 safeties in the league this year.
Wow, and he got benched a couple weeks ago.
They can't afford to bench him now.
Now they can't. Yeah. He's been a good player through his career. I don't know.
They're paying him a lot of money.
I don't know what his story is, or he just hit the wall. I don't know.
Opposing teams have a perfect 158.3 passer rating when he is the closest defender in coverage.
So
your free safety, that's not good.
And he used to make a lot of plays. He's not making positive plays for them.
At
all.
He actually his grade is 42.8.
Wow. He said last amongst all safeties.
Last among all safeties, regardless of position. Roquan Smith.
He's not had the year you'd think either.
So it makes you wonder, like when I wrote about the Patrick Queen stuff in the offseason, whether it was Queen that made Smith or Smith that made Queen, because the argument was always that Smith made Queen.
Right, because when they traded for him, Queen spiked.
But he was already on it. He was already having a good season, and then they traded for Roquan Smith, and he got better. Whereas Roquan Smith in Chicago actually went the other way. His first year was really good, and then he kind of fell off as the years went, which happens when you're on a bad team.
And now he's playing next to a super young guy that hasn't been around the block.
Yeah.
So the whole back seven, I'd say Hamilton aside, and Humphrey, it's pretty exploitable in the passing game right now.
Yeah. They have, I think it's 6 interceptions as a team, and Humphrey has 4 of them.
Does he really? Okay. Which also means people aren't afraid to throw at him, too.
Yeah. But
he's a good player.
You can avoid him, and if Hamilton's not there, you just attack the other things.
Yeah. I mean, if Williams is now a liability, Stevens wasn't nearly that bad last year.
Yeah.
And Roquan's been a really good player as a Raven, but this year he is not.
The other thing about it, if you start looking at
I keep going back to coaching with them. Losing 3 major assistants, the defense coordinator and a couple other real prominent assistants is showing up.
I know people think that Joey Porter Jr. is highly penalized. And if you look at their overall numbers, that's the case. Yes, he's drawn 10 penalties this year. 7 that were accepted and 3 that either canceled out or declined.
The Ravens are highly penalized.
9 of his penalties have come in 2 games.
Yeah.
You
mentioned that to earlier.
6 in the game against Denver when Clete Blakeman's over-officious Jerks crew was working the game. 3 last week. He has 1 in the other 7 games outside of those 2.
And we were having a conversation off the air, too. Like, last year, LeJerry Sneed was number 1. And then he gets this huge contract, and they give up money for him. Like, this isn't uncommon with the top corners in the league to have some, be at the top of the league in terms of penalties taken.
Yeah, Patrick Surtain has 9.
Okay, again, matched up against number 1 receivers.
Sauce Gardner has 8. Trent McDuffie has 10.
Okay, these are all the best corners in the league.
Yeah. I mean, that's just it. But
that's
then
just part of doing business, right?
Nate Wiggins has 8.
Does he really?
Yeah.
He was a little grabby coming out of school, too. He has not been great either.
Marlon Humphrey has 7.
Does he? I mean, the team as a whole leads the league in penalties.
Yeah, their secondary has a bunch of penalties.
And that's where they're mostly coming from.
Yeah, they get a bunch of penalties in the secondary, and those 2 are the two main culprits. I mean, when you have 2 guys in your secondary who are among the league or in the top 10,
that's
most penalized defensive backs.
Hard to overcome. Yeah,
yeah, that's going to lead to some problems, and you're not covering anybody.
And there's a lot of mental errors and blown coverages, and the pass rushes good, not great. Even last year, like when Clowney was there, a lot of their pass rush was because of scheme. And thus the defense coordinator becomes the head coach at Seattle. And they're definitely not scheming up blitzes nearly as well either. I mean, their 4-man rush even last year was not great. I mean, Matabuke is probably their best pass rusher at his respective position. Like Van Noy's a nice player.
Yeah.
But he's kind of a do-it-all. I mean, he wouldn't start for the Steelers. You know what I mean? Like he's a good player, but he's not, a dynamic edge rusher.
The funny thing is they traded for Tre'Davious White.
Yeah, which I don't understand.
In 4 games this season with the Rams, Tre'Davious White had 6 penalties.
Wow.
He's among the league leaders in penalties as a defensive back, and he's only played in 4 games.
A ton, right?
He didn't play last week. He sat out the previous 3 games or 4 games with the Rams. And you just kind of...
I mean, he's clearly lost a step.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a bad injury, 2 years ago, and has never been the same.
He's had several bad injuries.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows how desperate they are for pass defense help.
Yeah.
He's not an appealing player at this stage of his career.
And, so, that was the thing Mike Tomlin talked about. Well, their teams are throwing the ball against them because they can't run it, and then game script leads to that. And there's some of that.
No doubt. The run defense is really good.
The run defense is good, but... At the same time, the pass defense is bad. I don't care how you parse it. Their pass defense has been bad.
It's flat out bad. I mean, even like they allow the most receptions to running backs, to tight ends, to outside receivers. Yeah, I mean, wherever you want.
They've allowed over 200 more passing yards to outside wide receivers than the next closest team in the league.
Wow. I mean, they haven't had their bye, but still, that's a ton. I mean, I didn't know that the yardage-wise. I knew like per reception is really high and completion percentage is really high. And the explosive stuff is crazy too. Like they're the most explosive offense in the league and they allow the most explosives on defense in the league. And they're all through the air because I think they're 3rd best in run defense explosives. But they're such a distant 32nd in pass defense explosives allowed. They're 32nd across the board on defense because it's that heavy.
It's that bad. They've given up 7 touchdown passes of 20 or more yards this year.
Yeah.
That leads the league.
That doesn't surprise me at all. Yeah.
I mean, it's a bad pass defense. And to Tomlin's point, he's like, look, you look at the players, you look at the...
Yeah, right. So, I mean, it's a little shocking.
Marcus Williams is a name.
Yes,
again, they're paying him money.
Stevens has had a pretty good career.
Yeah.
The linebackers have been good. Well, Roquan has been good in coverage. He isn't this year for whatever reason.
Yeah. So
I blame the coaching.
I mean, it's got to be that or declining players.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe it's a mix of both.
And it's probably a perfect storm of terribleness.
I mean, even Marlon Humphrey is now starting to get up there a little bit.
Yeah. And you'll see them, though, like it seems like play calls come in late, too, because a lot of times they're like, trying to get, and then communication's not great. And if you're lost a step on top of that, I mean, it's troubling.
Because of that, I'm glad you mentioned that. If you're the Steelers, you try to play with a little pace this week?
Maybe. I mean, Wilson can handle it. I mean, and that's something we haven't talked about, but Arthur Smith has called enough plays in his career that you can tell he plays a little faster than the average coordinator to begin with.
Yeah.
In terms of how much time goes off the play clock. He's a faster paced guy than most. He's not the fastest, but he's a little bit speedier to begin with.
Yeah, so that will be something interesting to keep an eye on in this game. I would try to play with some pace.
Yeah, I think that makes sense because it's definitely communication, and from the booth to the sideline to the players to amongst the players all talking has been a problem.
Especially, given what the Steelers can throw out there with some of their packages.
Mm-hmm.
If I got let's say I got Hayward and Freiermuth on the field and they're in heavy personnel, but then all of a sudden they go, okay, I'm going to split these guys out wide.
Mm-hmm.
I got a good back out of the backfield, whichever one that it is that can catch the football here. And we're gonna catch them in some situations.
Yeah, and 13 personnel does that to a lot of teams too because they don't see it much. So how are we going to counter that? Or you feel your way through it as a defensive coordinator early in the game. Is this a nickel situation? Should we stay in our base? And sometimes you guess wrong, And if they realize you got you, well, then keep it going.
Yeah, just use that pace as a weapon.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely, that's a good call.
Yeah, speaking of good calls,
yes.
We're going to get to a break here because we're expected to be joined here at 4:15 by Steelers running back Jaylen Warren. And as you mentioned, Matt, the Ravens give up a ton of catches.
Yeah, this could be a running back game. Yeah,
so he could definitely play a factor in this particular game. But he is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is Matt Williamson, and we're pleased to be joined now on the Justin Miller Hotline by Steelers running back Jaylen Warren. Jaylen, how you doing today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. Jaylen, first of all, you guys are on a bit of a roll here again, scoring 30 points a game, averaging that over your last 3 games here. And that's kind of coincided with a certain running back getting healthy again here. You feel like you've chipped in and been a part of that over the last 3 weeks here, and do you feel like you're finally starting to get into not game shape, but getting back up to speed in this whole thing?
Yeah, I do feel like getting back to my game speed. I feel as good as ever during this season as I felt all season. I'll say I made a couple plays, but props to the all the other 10 on the field with me that helped me make those plays.
So, Jaylen, this year you have 2 new teammates on defense that are former Baltimore Ravens. How much picking of their mind have you done this week?
I haven't done it yet, but I was gonna chop it up with PQ and ask him a few questions.
Jaylen, when it comes to practice, you've always been a guy and playing. You've always been a guy that wants to be out there all the time. You never take your helmet off when you're on the practice field. You're always out there ready to go. How difficult was that for you, actually being down for a few games this week or this season? Had to just be eating away at you.
It sucked because obviously I would rather be playing, but my teammates being there for me made it a lot easier to kind of deal with that situation. Props to them for that also. And yeah, I'd say that.
I did a story on you. For people that don't know, I wrote a story on you your rookie year, and I talked to your high school coach, and he said that you had a very bad hamstring injury. I think it was your senior year in high school?
Senior year, I think you said, yeah.
And it would be the point where you couldn't walk the day after the game, and even on Monday you'd kind of still be on crutches, but every Friday you came out and took the ball again and had another monster season. So, I mean, you've been a guy that just play. You just play the game.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, what goes into that mentality? What's that? What is it that drives you like that?
I'd say just my love for the game. Obviously, my family, there's my wife, we can get into that, but I just love the game a lot, and, I enjoy playing football, especially playing with people I enjoy playing with. And so my teammates are, like my brothers, and I look at it as like we take the field together, like a war mentality. Our guys versus your guys, and I embrace that all the time.
So, Jaylen, you have a veteran quarterback that's been around the block that may end up in the Hall of Fame someday. I mean, what kind of what's he like in the huddle?
Russ,
yes.
Yeah, he's very informative. He's a leader for sure. He's gonna, he's gonna let you know like what's up, what he needs from you. If you're lacking, he doesn't let you get too high, get too low. He's a great leader in that sense.
You're actually returning kicks this year. You're back there with Cordero. What's that been like for you? You didn't get to do. You were always kind of the up back before in previous years. With this new kick rule, have you kind of like learning this whole thing still here because you guys haven't gotten many opportunities, or is this a situation like, hey, we're gonna bust one here at some point?
And did you return kicks in college or high school?
No, I was always the off returner in college. I didn't do any in high school. Yeah, I mean, we prepare like we're gonna get it every kickoff in the game. So, our special teams coordinator is good with our preparation, and so when it comes to the game time, we're not shocked when we do get the ball in play.
What kind of special teams experience do you have at the college or high school level?
I was just like a kickoff guy. Like I'll run down and just go hit somebody. Yeah.
I can see you doing that.
I ain't my net at all.
Jaylen, a lot of people, and obviously people may not know this about you, but you and Najee are actually basically the same age. You came out of high school at the same time, and we're in the same kind of area. Your high schools were in that same area. You were actually on the Max Preps all high school team, all senior high school team your last year in high school. And it's been kind of cool. You guys have a really good relationship in terms of that. And have you given yourselves a nickname yet or anything?
Nah, people gave us nicknames, and we kind of just stuck with that.
We mentioned Cordero Patterson is a kickoff returner, but he's also sharing a backfield with you guys now. What's he brought to the table?
Speed, his veteran mentality, his knowledge for the game. He definitely shares, because he used to be a receiver, and so him being a running back, he has insight on both, and he helps us a lot.
He kind of has a unique build for a running back too. I mean, for people that haven't seen him in person, he's bigger than you think. Yeah.
Yeah, he is. He is bigger. He's big in person. I didn't know he was going to be that big.
Jaylen, when Najee was asked this question last week at his when he spoke to the media, and I was just curious in regards to this with you. Do you guys feel like you've hit the ground running here a little bit quicker this season? I know last year, I think over the final 10 games of the season, you guys averaged about 145 rushing yards per game, but before that, there were some just kind of fits and spurts. But this year, you've kind of found that those running lanes and found that mentality a little sooner in the season. Is that the Arthur Smith factor?
Yeah, you could say that. Or our old linemen, they're really the ones who provide all our creases, all our splash plays. So I just want to shout out to them. They make things a lot easier for us running backs.
So speaking of the O-line, I mean, there was like a 6 or 7 week stretch there to start the season where the Steelers had to start a different combination of linemen. I mean, how difficult is that on a back? I mean, do you have to get used to McCormick and Frazier or whomever, all the change?
I would say like getting used to that. I say we like to say we have a lot of starters, so it was like one man's misfortunes, another one's opportunity, and we embrace that over here. So when one goes down, another one replaces him. We don't sit there and question, how he's going to do. With our preparation and, our team bond, our chemistry, we know they're going to come in and do just as good as a job as the one that went down.
Well, Jaylen, we appreciate your time. We know you got a busy week this week with the Ravens coming up, and then the quick turnaround with the Browns on Thursday night. So we'll let you go here. We do appreciate you calling in and spending some time with us here on Steelers Nation Radio. That was Jaylen Warren, Steelers running back. Great dude and really good player.
Yeah.
Glad to have him back in the lineup here for the Steelers, and more good things to come here from him. But he is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. This is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. When we return, we'll be joined by the Dean of Doom.
All right.
Bob Labriola, right after this. And we are back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and we're joined on the Justin Miller Hotline by the Dean of Doom, the Lord of Living in His Fears. We need music, intro music for this one.
Like coming into the ring.
Like Undertaker's music or something. Can we work on that? It's Bob Labriola, folks.
Enter the Sandman.
Okay, that would work too. There we go. That would work too. I could see you banging your head at home as you get ready to come on here, Bob.
Stan Savran used to play X's and O's every time I came on. I loved it. It was great.
I bang my head. I bang my head just because I'm coming on with you guys.
Well, that would be understandable as well. Labs, how you doing today?
Pretty good. How are you guys doing?
Not too bad.
Good.
Not too bad. Big week. It's Ravens week, and you still get does this still get the juices flowing for you after all these? You and I have seen every one of these meetings for the most part. These things.
Yes.
Somebody asked me in the comments section of our YouTube channel here if I had a favorite Steelers Ravens moment. I'm like, that's like asking me to pick my favorite child.
Yeah, I'd say
There's just too many.
No, there's one.
Okay. I know where you're going with that.
6 in the 2008 AFC Championship. And then I can give you a second one.
Okay.
Easily. Antonio Brown's play on Christmas Day. The Immaculate Extension. Not only beat the Ravens, clinched the playoff spot for the Steelers, but eliminated Baltimore from the playoffs. Christmas Day. Ho, ho, ho.
Well, there's also a very under the radar Steelers Ravens moment. 2003, end of the season. And
yes,
Brian Billick goes crazy trying to win that game down in Baltimore, knowing they had everything clinched. The Steelers weren't going to make the playoffs that year, and they had to get the running back. What was his name? The running back that went for 2,000 yards that year.
Jamal Lewis.
They had to get Jamal Lewis over 2,000 yards.
Okay.
And they had to beat the Steelers, even though they had already clinched and they couldn't get a bye. Steelers take them to overtime. Baltimore wins the game, but the Steelers won in the long haul because that loss dropped them to 11th in the draft, and they would have been 14th had they won that game, and they get Ben Roethlisberger.
Look at all
well,
that.
And the other thing was the Ravens went to Tennessee and got their butts kicked because they were all beat up from trying to beat the Steelers in a meaningless game, and Tennessee was a pretty physical team too. So that was another one of those win-win situations.
Is that like the Eddie George McNair teams? They were really physical.
Probably.
That would have been probably Chris Johnson.
Well,
Okay.
I believe at the time too, Tennessee was still in the same division.
Yeah.
It was.
Yeah, I guess it would be.
Yeah, so that probably was the Steve McNair, Eddie George teams. But then for theater, you like theater? I give you theater too. There was James Thrash stepping on Plexico Burress's head. There was the time Joey Porter Sr., he and Ray Lewis had some discussions on the field, and Joey Porter Sr. Went to the Ravens buses after the game to try and continue the discussion. That was a highlight. But there's been a lot of those kinds of things too. There were, Hines Ward against Ed Reed, James Harrison against the entire Ravens team in 2007 on that Monday night game, where he single-handedly destroyed them with sacks and an interception, and
Forced and fumbles recovered, and
right.
Still the greatest. That's the greatest defensive performance I've ever seen.
I think I've heard you guys talking about it. Like, didn't Ben throw like 5 touchdowns? Ben nobody even brought it up.
5 first-half touchdowns in that game, and nobody talks about it. It's the James Harrison game.
Yeah.
That's how dominant he was in that game.
Okay, full disclosure, I have to pick a player of the week every game. For that game, I picked Ben.
I don't blame you.
Because this was my thinking about it. I could have been talked out of it, but there was nobody there to talk me out of it. It was my decision, and I'm trying to figure it out. But if Ben doesn't stick every one of those takeaways and turnovers and all that great stuff that Harrison did in the end zone, maybe that game isn't remembered as James Harrison's greatest game because it's not 35-0 at halftime. But I mean, think about that every time. And he was throwing touchdown passes.
Yeah.
So
I think he only threw the ball like 16 times in that game.
Right, and had 5 touchdowns.
Wow.
It was
in the first half.
Well, then, I think Ben threw for 6 touchdowns in a game against the Ravens too, 39-38.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, there's been a lot of memorable moments, a lot of angst, I believe, for each team's fans. And I don't know, maybe the greatest play Ben Roethlisberger ever made in the Ravens series was not getting sacked. That time it was
Terrell
2010.
Suggs, yeah.
Right. He just kind of worked his arms free and threw the ball out of bounds that enabled the Steelers not to lose that yardage. And then 4th down, red zone Redmond took a handoff and ran in for a touchdown because there were a lot of years where the Steelers-Ravens series, regular season series, all that did was determine the site of the third game because they were going to meet in the playoffs. Mm-hmm. 08, they were both 12-4. 2010, they were both 12-4. But because the Steelers beat the Ravens at least once, sometimes twice, they won the division. And in the NFL, if you win your division, even if another team in your division has the same record as you host any games against that team if you meet in the playoffs. And that's why the Ravens had to go to Pittsburgh in 2008. That's why the Ravens had to go to Pittsburgh in the divisional round in 2010. And that was the game where that was the coming out party of Antonio Brown.
That was the helmet catch.
The helmet catch game. So, I mean, there's a lot of those kinds of nickname games. The pick 6 game, the Immaculate Extension game, the helmet catch game, all of those. I don't know. I just hope that Sunday is, something equally as memorable.
And the thing about the Steelers-Ravens games in that era, Bob, in that 2006, 2007 to 2010 era, I truly believe those games, and as physical as they were the reason the league changed the rules.
Oh, Mike Tomlin is convinced that the 2008 AFC Championship game was what precipitated the player safety initiative.
They might as well have given every player on the field a baseball bat and said, okay, guys, go play football, because they were just destroying each other.
Violence. Yeah.
My recollection of that is someone told me that in the meeting, the last team meeting, let's just pretend that the AFC Championship game was on a Sunday. I don't remember what day of the week it was, but let's just pretend it was a Sunday. The Saturday night team meeting, Mike Tomlin's message to the team was, the most violent team tomorrow will win. And the Steelers played like that.
So we've thrown a lot of names out there. Who's your least favorite Baltimore Birdie of all time? And do you think if we asked Ravens folks, they would pick Hines Ward?
I'll tell you. I mean, Hines Ward for some reasons. I mean, the physicality of it, and I mean that was another. One of James Harrison's greatest quotes after Hines Ward lit up Ed Reed. And Ed Reed was moaning about it. James Harrison's line about that, when he heard about what Ed Reed was whining about, he said, "It's not so much fun when the rabbit's got the gun." Because, what receivers aren't supposed to hit defensive backs. I mean, God. But I don't know. I mean, if you're a Ravens fan, Ben has to be high on that list.
Sure.
I mean, you talk about thorn in your side. Ben Roethlisberger has to be high on that list of guys you got to hate. And, for a Steelers fan, Ray Lewis.
I thought you might go with Lewis or Suggs, yeah.
Because, and I remember there were a couple of games where Dan Kreider owned him. Lead fullback, and Dan Kreider was not a shrinking violet. And there were a couple of games, a lot of times those games were wars in the sense that, very little rushing yardage and those kind of things. But every now and then, the Steelers would get it going a little bit running the ball. The Ravens had some instances where they were doing it as well. And I remember one game, it was at Heinz Field, as it was called then, and they ran a lot of, what was it called? 34 Boss, I think, Jerome's play. And Dan Kreider was leading Jerome up through that hole. And Ray Lewis, he's no shrinking violet either. He was coming in and filling the hole, but Kreider was digging him out of there. And those were more violent collisions, I think, than anything that was happening with the running back and the guys who were trying to tackle him. The blocker and the guy getting blocked.
The fullback hits.
Right,
yeah,
the fullback hits.
Yeah, to your point, Bob, Roethlisberger, in games started by Roethlisberger against the Ravens, he was 17-10.
Wow.
And for a while there, it was like 8-0 at one point early in his career. And there were some games there that he missed, but for him to have a winning record overall against the Ravens, the games the Steelers would end up losing in those situations would be when he wasn't available. There was a stretch there where he wasn't available. Do you see some similarities there between that and what's going on with Lamar Jackson, Bob? I mean, Lamar's been in the league a while now. And he's only played him 4 times. He's 1-4 in his career against the Steelers. He's been in the league more than 4 years, and they play more than once per year.
They might play 3 times this year.
Yeah, the only thing is, I'm not going to deny that the Steelers have a very impressive record against Lamar Jackson, and the way they play against him is as good as any team in the league has managed to do throughout Jackson's career. I just don't know that that's going to be a forever thing. And at least this year, I have a little bit of, I can seek a little comfort, to use a Mike Tomlinism, that if it is an offensive shootout, the Steelers have some bullets in their gun this time. They don't have to win 13-10, because I think, for the first time since, Ben was maybe throwing 6 touchdown passes against the Ravens or doing some of the things that he did, the Steelers offense, Russell Wilson, the receivers, Najee Harris, and especially going against this particular version of the Ravens defense, it could be 38-35 Sunday with Baltimore's offense, and I think the Steelers can match it if they have to. It could be a typical Ravens Steelers in a lot of ways, but in a different kind of way too.
So do you think this rivalry is what it is just because they were the two best teams in the division at the same time, or do you think a lot of it derives from there's a lot of similarities in the organization?
Well, let's start with this. They're the Browns.
Mm-hmm.
They're the Browns. That's how it started. I mean, they are the Cleveland Browns, and you look at, before Modell ran out of town and went to Baltimore, the Steelers' rival traditionally was the Cleveland Browns ever since the Browns came into the NFL in 1950. Now, it wasn't equally contested rivalry. I remember Phil Music once describing it as evenly matched as the Soviet invasion of Czechoslovakia in 1958. But the Steelers hated the Browns. The Browns hated the Steelers. The fans hated each other. Those Saturday night games in Cleveland were always 80-some thousand people, fights in the stands. I mean, it was ridiculous. And then the Modell takes the team to Baltimore. They become the Ravens, but they're still the Browns. And so I think that was a part of it. It laid a very nice foundation for the hatred that still exists. And then I think Mike Tomlin's line sums it up. 2 trains, 1 track. That's what it is. 2 teams going for the same thing, the same way, on the same narrow strip of real estate. And, there's no finesse on either side. They're not trying to. And as I used to say, even the secretaries hate each other.
Yeah.
I mean, so I remember one time an intern, you talk about not being able to read the room. An intern wore purple that week.
Oh, boy.
Whoops. Yeah.
He didn't get fired.
But that's frowned upon, yeah.
Well, more than that.
Yeah.
I don't know what frowned upon to the nth degree how it would be described, but it was that. It's legitimate. I mean, it's not a manufactured thing. It's and wait till Renegade is played Sunday.
Mm-hmm.
The Ravens, they danced to that on the sideline. The Ravens look at that as a situation where they know it's coming. They know it fires up the Steelers and their fans, and so they're into it. They want it too. They want the extra juice that seems to provide. So there's no shrinking violets in this. Again, as I said, 2 trains, 1 track. That to me is a great description of what these games always have been. From the Cordell Stewart game in 1997 up there in Baltimore at Memorial Stadium. Remember that one, Dale?
The longest run in Steelers history against the Ravens, yes.
Yep. And, it was one of those where it was at the end of the game, and you just thought that the Steelers were going to try and run the ball, run the clock out with a conservative. And I got to believe that the play was called from the sideline, and Bill Cowher had to approve that. But Cordell pulled the ball out and ran a bootleg. Everybody crunched down in the middle of the line of scrimmage trying to stop the run, and Cordell's dancing down the sideline. What did he go, 80 yards or some ridiculous? But I mean, there was that happened. So yeah, there's been a lot of things that each team has rubbed the other's nose in it. Here's one for the Ravens. I don't know that I've ever seen Ben Roethlisberger ever take a beating like he did in the 2 games in 2006.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
There were a couple of times he was sacked. Again, we weren't to the player safety initiative yet. But, I mean, I thought he was dead. A couple of times he got hit by whoever it was. I don't remember who it was at that particular time. I don't think Suggs was there yet. Maybe he was. I'd have to look it up. But and Baltimore beat the snot out of the Steelers twice. And that was the year after the Steelers won the Super Bowl. So, yeah, there's a lot of history there, a lot of bad blood there. And, stories also get told about, rookies coming into, the Steelers and playing this in their first one of these games. And I remember Marquise Pouncey, rookie in 2010, was told something, he was a Gator, and, Florida played some brutal rival games in the SEC. And he was told, they call that Florida-Georgia game the cocktail party. Well, that's what it is going to seem like compared to Steelers-Ravens. You're gonna think that those games were a cocktail party compared to what's going to be happening on the field on Sunday. And as I said, it's not for the faint of heart, believe me.
Labs, what's the key to victory on Sunday? Do you believe for the Steelers?
As I said earlier in this discussion, I'm not so sure it's going to be a 13-10 kind of game. So I think it's going to be more of an offensive showcase or battle, or that kind of game. It's easy to say turnovers, because when the game is always close, like these always are, anything you do to help the other team can often be the difference. I would just say the Steelers' A players need to play an A game. Your stars have to be stars for both teams. Whichever team wins, I think you will look back on it and say, like, if the Ravens win, I would imagine Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry and, those people, Mark Andrews, they had good games. For the Steelers, I think it would be, on offense, Russell Wilson, Najee Harris; on defense, T.J. Watt, Minka Fitzpatrick. I mean, those are the guys that have to show up and do what they can do, because that's what they're going to be required to do to win this game on Sunday.
Labs, last thing I have for you is, do you think Tomlin and Harbaugh kind of, I know that you know that I know that you know, kind of coach a certain way in this game?
I don't know. What they say, and I don't know if it was Shakespeare or whoever, familiarity breeds contempt. But, those kinds of things, I think when you start playing that game, you're really setting yourself up for a curveball. Because if you think what the other guy's going to do, because that's what he has done in the past, I think you're setting yourself up to be tricked. So, if I don't know, I'm guessing. I got no idea. I don't have an answer for you, man. Yeah. All I can tell you is I think that this isn't that kind of game where you're going to trick somebody. You're going to have to line up and beat the snot out of your opponent. Your one-on-one matchups, you got to win those. You got to do those kinds of things. I don't think you win this game because of a play call or a gadget play or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't.
Beat up the guy in front of you.
It's got to. Yes, it is primal. It is basic. It is fundamental. This is what the sport kind of was drawn up by the guys who played it in leather helmets. It's not really. It's not about being tricky or any of that stuff. You have to block and tackle. If you're running the ball, you got to make the pile fall forward. If you're trying to stop the run, you got to make the pile fall backward. I truly believe it's going to be that simple and fundamental.
Well, Labs, we've kept you long enough here today. We do appreciate your time and you moving your time back a little bit. You got bumped back for Jaylen Warren. So, what can we say?
Well, hey, I don't consider myself a big shot. So, I'm rooting for Jaylen Warren on Sunday. I'll tell you that. I'd happily give him all of my time. If, for a big game from him on Sunday.
Absolutely. But we're going to let you go here. Our guest has been Bob Labriola, editor of Steelers Digest and Steelers.com, and the Dean of Doom and Lord of Living in His Fears. I'll see you on Sunday, Bob. We'll watch this Steelers-Ravens matchup once again and enjoy this one. He is Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. That's going to do it for hour number 1 of The Drive. Matt and I will be back with hour number 2 right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley, and he is Matt Williamson, and this is the start of hour number 2 of The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. And, of course, you can hear The Drive every Monday through Friday from 4 to 6 p.m. right here on these very airwaves, or you can download the Steelers mobile app, and it will be downloaded directly into your phone and show up there, or you can watch us on YouTube.
Or all the above.
You can also listen on YouTube. You can watch the show without the sound. It usually works better with the sound up.
A little more enjoyable. Right. Yeah, all kinds of outlets nowadays.
Absolutely.
We got an eventful show today, too.
Absolutely.
2 guests already in the book.
The Justin Miller hotline is burning up over there.
It's on fire.
Yeah. It's time for the Fantasy Football Focus here. We'll take a spin around the league here and see who is in and who is out among the teams here, who's practicing, who's not. I do have a Ravens practice report from today, finally.
Okay.
And, no Kyle Hamilton.
You say earlier they play games with it? I mean, they just slow to let
Harbaugh
it
plays
it.
games. He'll say guys this or that, and you can't trust him.
Okay. More so than most coaches.
Yeah.
Okay.
He lies. Kyle Hamilton did not practice with that ankle injury.
That's the one to watch. And
That's
it's
the one to keep an eye on.
We did talk pretty extensively in the first segment, and fantastic football player that does a lot for that defense. And I mean, I cited the numbers. I mean, the pass attempt numbers are crazy whenever he's not on the field.
Isaiah Likely, with the hamstring, a limited participant, he did not play last Thursday night against the Bengals, so we'll see if he's able to get back. And again, that limited designation doesn't have the same meaning that it used to.
Mm-hmm.
That could mean he was just working with trainers on the side.
Well, since this is a fantasy segment, that definitely helps Andrews. I mean, Andrews' production has been really good lately. I think he's over like the car accident and things, but likely not being on the field spikes his route participation and snaps and all that stuff too.
What will be interesting about that is something we talked about earlier in the week. If Likely it plays, obviously Andrews is going to play, but they want to have Charlie Kohler on the field to help block TJ Watt.
Yeah.
So if you are they going to play 13 a lot?
It's hard. I don't know. I mean, because Ricard's going to play quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
He always does. I mean, he could line up on Watt's side as well, but I would think Kohler's the best Watt helper. Teams attack the Steelers out of 11, though, the most.
Right.
And now the Ravens have 3 receivers that are worthy in the field, although Deontay still has only run like 7 routes in Ravens uniform. So, I don't know. That's a big thing for me is I just think they have a very diverse skill position offensive packages, and they'll throw 6 offensive linemen on the field, too.
I figured this one out today. They have 5 different players with 24 or more catches this year.
Okay.
They also have 10 different players who have caught touchdown passes.
Wow. I mean, they score a lot of touchdowns, and they do a lot of good things on offense. But
they've only had 11 guys catch passes for them this year.
Okay.
But 10 of them have scored.
And Henry scores every game.
Yeah. So, anyways, let's get on to the fantasy football.
So that's the end of their injury stuff?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it. Kyle Van Noy missed practice today, but it was because of an illness.
Okay.
So we'll see where that goes.
I'm sure they trust him. And
is he sick? Can he get Lamar sick? Because Lamar misses several practices a year because of illness.
He does seem to get sick a lot, by the way, which is strange.
I wonder if he wasn't vaccinated as a child.
I don't know. But it always seems to come up with him.
Yeah, he gets sick a lot. Jordan Love. Packers are back on the field today after being off last week. Well, he got a full practice in today, which is good.
To be expected. That's what they kind of thought. The bye would heal him enough.
Jair Alexander, limited on Wednesday for the Packers, however.
Hey, the Bears this week?
Yes.
I think so. Yeah.
Yes.
I think they're going to steamroll.
Hunter Henry with a foot issue, limited on practice Wednesday for the Patriots.
Yeah, Hooper did some stuff.
Hooper was back,
Yeah, in his stead. I mean, it doesn't sound like much, but they need him. I mean, their pass catchers are thin.
Awful.
Yeah, really bad.
Tyler Algier with a quad, limited on Wednesday.
Okay. I mean, you're firing up Bijan either way. Bijan's been great, but it could even greater. I mean, he could get a little bit bigger slice of the pie, especially coming off a loss.
Drake London still dealing with that hip issue that happened a couple of weeks ago. Well, he played through it last week and did quite well, and he practiced in full today. He could get the Patrick Surtain.
Yeah, it's not a great matchup for him. I'm sure he will.
Although they'll bump him into the slot some to kind of free him up. Darnell Mooney might end up seeing.
Mooney's had a good year.
Yeah. He might end up seeing more because he doesn't go to the slot. And that's just something to keep an eye on there.
Yeah, London will go all over.
Maybe they move London into the slot and then Mooney gets the Surtain treatment.
Yeah, maybe.
Kirk Cousins with the shoulder elbow issues, limited in practice on Wednesday.
Okay. It's something to pay attention to.
Definitely worth noting there.
Right. Especially at his age.
Dallas Goedert with that ankle injury off of Thursday's injury report.
Yeah, I think he played this past week,
but
I didn't know if that'd be precautionary this week or not.
Yeah. Devontae Smith, he's good to go with that hamstring issue, so fire him up.
Those are all playing tomorrow.
Brian Robinson with that hamstring is good to go on Thursday.
Okay. I did see Lattimore's not going to still play for them this week. So it's pretty good for A.J. Brown and Smith, and that's going to be a fun game.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah, it is.
Trent Williams has ankle and wrist issues and is not practicing on Wednesday. When he doesn't play for the San Francisco 49ers, their offensive numbers take a big hit.
Oh, it's like the Hamilton stuff we just brought up, or when Watt misses time. I mean, he is so important to them.
So keep an eye on that. And the ankle and wrist aren't connected.
No, not at all.
It's actually two different things there for him, so that's definitely worth noting. And he's an older guy.
He's an older guy, yeah. I mean, it's only Wednesday. I'm sure they're going to be super precautionary with him, but keep an eye out.
Christian McCaffrey, limited at practice on Wednesday. I think that's probably going to be what he does the rest of the year.
Yeah.
But Nick Bosa with a hip issue did not practice on Wednesday.
McCaffrey played a high percentage of the snaps,
too. More than I thought he would.
More than I thought he would, too. Bosa's a huge deal, obviously.
George Kittle with a hamstring, not practicing on Wednesday.
Is that what's been bugging him all year?
No, this is new.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's definitely worth keeping an eye on.
I mean, he's one of the best tight ends in fantasy this year.
Yeah. If he doesn't play, that's a huge hit.
Huge hit. Those are all the biggest name guys on the Niners team.
Michael Pittman, a full practice participant on Wednesday, but they're going back to Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, I thought they were considering putting Pittman on IR, so maybe he's doing a little bit better. Maybe just needed 1 week off. Yeah, they are going back to Richardson, which I think is the right move for the Colts, organizationally top to bottom.
But that also means they're probably out of the playoff picture in the AFC.
I tend to agree. I think it hurts Downs the most.
Yeah. Helps Pierce.
Helps Pierce on the bombs, yeah.
But, yeah. DK Metcalf with a knee issue, limited on Wednesday. That's a good sign for him.
They're coming off a bye, right?
Yeah, he's coming off a bye. He had a knee injury, so we'll see where that goes with him. Curtis Samuel with a pec and foot, practiced in full on Wednesday. He's always got something.
He's always got something, yeah. He had a big game this last week, didn't he? Their receivers are hard to keep track of a little bit.
Yeah, I know
Cooper's
Shakir
been
did.
out. Kincaid's got a little something wrong with him, too.
Mac Hollins did some stuff in that game, too.
Okay.
J.J. McCarthy underwent a second surgery this week on his knee. Apparently there was some swelling or infection in there. He had a surgery for a torn meniscus. You don't like them having to go back in
November.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, is he going to be ready for mini camps and training camps? And I think we had this conversation yesterday, but I don't think Darnold will be a Viking next year.
Yeah.
I mean, I think they're counting on him to be the guy, and he needs all the reps he can get.
Sam Laporta with the shoulder injury, not practicing on Wednesday. That's an AC joint sprain. They're playing the Jaguars. They might just hold him out.
Yeah, it wouldn't be the worst idea in the world. I'm sure that they're like 13.5-point dog or favorites.
Yeah, and there's no tight end on their roster that you go, just pick this guy up. They haven't even used
Right.
They haven't even used Laporta much.
Yeah, Laporta's a borderline fantasy starter,
which is crazy. He was like the number 1 tight end in the league coming into this season.
He was a little touchdown dependent last year, but he also passed the eye test. He looked great.
Yeah, he looked great.
Right, yeah.
Even this year, he's looked fine, but they just don't throw him the football.
Injury aside, I still kind of think he's a buy low.
Yeah.
I mean, he made the second half of the season might be strong for him.
Austin Seibert is out for Week 11 with the Washington Commanders. It will be Zane Gonzalez kicking for them in this game against the Eagles, and that's really fantasy significant because Seibert was leading the league, and still is, in field goal attempts and makes. Because Boswell didn't have any last week.
Yeah. Good Eagles defense, too. Maybe they bottle him up in the red zone. Gonzalez wouldn't be a bad kicker streamer, if that's what you're into.
Yeah.
If that floats your boat,
Isaiah Pacheco will resume practicing, but it's unlikely to play in Week 11. Well, no kidding.
Yeah.
They're just opening his 21-day window.
Okay.
Juju Smith-Schuster has a good chance to play in Week 11.
I think he's droppable.
But will anybody notice?
Yeah. I think now that Hopkins is there and Kelsey's involvement, that Juju doesn't play much.
Michael Mayer. Remember, he's been out for most of the season with a personal issue. He returned to practice this week. Now, I don't know if he plays this week, but they could use another pass catcher.
He's been out for a while.
He didn't play against the Steelers, no.
I was thinking he was injured. I forgot it was a personal matter.
It was a personal issue.
Something serious.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's a good player.
No, he's a good player. They need all the help they can get, too. But I don't think he's fantasy relevant with Bowers there ever.
I think he could be. I want to see it.
Mm-hmm.
I want to see it because I expect them to play a lot of 12.
I'm sure they will.
Yeah. Because
he's
one of their best 11.
Yes.
And
they knew that when they drafted Bowers.
Yeah.
Right.
And
it wasn't a knock on him.
He was actually a good pass catcher for them last year.
It also looks like they're going back to Minshew.
Yeah.
Which I think is good news if you have Myers or Bowers. Ritter's not going to get it done.
No. Dalton Kincaid not practicing today.
Okay. Keep an eye out. He's been a little disappointing, too. Him and Laporta look like
He's not to Laporta's level of disappointment but the expectation was that he would be a top 5 or 6 tight end this year.
He was definitely in my top 5 on fantasy draft day.
Yeah.
Like a number McBride neighborhood,
Amari Cooper with that wrist injury, limited in practice on Wednesday.
Okay. They get the Chiefs. I mean, it's
a big one.
Yeah, it's a big one. You'd like to see Cooper get in there.
Devontae Adams with an illness and wrist issue, not practicing Wednesday. He hasn't been fantasy relevant since he went to the Jets.
Tough one. Yeah.
Like I just peeked in last week while they were playing when the Steelers were playing. I'm like, what's at? Like I'm looking at how the Jets only have like 6 points at that point.
Oh, they were miserable.
And I'm like, nobody's doing anything.
Mm-mm.
And I think Adams at that point was like 4 targets and no catches.
I think Wilson's a better player.
Yeah. I just don't. I think so much of the Adams and Rodgers thing was, I don't want to say off script, but how many times did you see them hook up on back shoulder throws and things of that nature?
Timing stuff and knowledge of one another.
And the timing's not there.
I think there's a lot of that. I don't think he's lost a step or anything.
No,
I still think he's a tremendous player. I mean,
Yeah.
I said that about Wilson. It was more of a compliment to Wilson. I just think they're somewhat of a dysfunctional organization.
Yeah, I think that's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Mac Jones will get to start again in Week 11. Trevor Lawrence with that shoulder injury will not play for the Jaguars. Does that hurt Evan Ingram?
Hurts everybody.
Yeah.
I mean, they're like 13-point dogs. I don't see a lot of points coming. I'm not sure Lawrence plays again this year. That sure feels like a coach gets fired on Monday type of game.
We've been saying that for weeks.
I know. I said that when they were overseas.
They're 13-point underdogs this week, and you're going to fire them after they lose by 17.
I would say it could be a 40-3 game though.
Yeah.
But they're just running all over you.
The Carolina Panthers activated Adam Thielen off of IR.
Yeah, that doesn't really move the needle for me, but I mean, that offense is starting to show some signs of life.
Yeah, I mean, they're on the bye this week. Maybe he gets back when they come back, and just somebody to keep an eye on.
Mm-hmm. I mean, he's much different than the young guys they're playing.
He caught 100 balls last year in that offense. Yeah. Like, that could happen again. Let's see here. It kind of looks like it in terms of, that's kind of it for the injury stuff there this week. But as we mentioned, a couple quarterback issues that are you're going to have Mac Jones again this week.
Colts are changing.
The Colts are changing, which affects their
Oh, that's a massive
distribution.
Because they're such different players.
It doesn't kill Josh Downs' value, but it doesn't help it.
So everyone probably remembers I was in love with Richardson pre-draft, but pre-fantasy draft. They need to run him. I mean, like, if you're going to put him back in there, they're in such a catch-22 because he never finishes games. That was a problem last year. So I'm sure ownership said, we're going to limit your running. But if you're not completing passes.
It's tough to play a quarterback.
Right. But, I mean, he can explode fantasy-wise. I mean, because of the rushing. I mean, it's a cheat code. But they're not doing that. I wonder if they're going to reevaluate those things.
Yeah, I don't. I mean, he's a guy. He started 1 year in high school at quarterback.
Right. He needs
started
to play.
1 year in college at quarterback.
Yeah.
And, it's very Trey Lance-like.
Exactly. I mean, that's the path he's on right now. Right. But he needs to play.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I think they're out of the playoff race now.
Yeah, I think that kind of pushes them aside.
Mm-hmm. And Flacco wasn't great either.
No.
Especially, he was good against Steelers, and then it seemed like every game was a little worse. And
you're 39. As you keep getting hit, the body just doesn't recover quite as well.
I bet we've seen the last of him too. I mean, he was on the couch last year. I don't know if he'll come back and play football next year.
Yeah, probably not.
Mm-hmm.
But let's get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. That is going to do it for the Fantasy Football Focus. Matt and I will be back with more right after this. And we are back. I'm Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And, Matt, we often go to the 33rd team for some interesting stuff here. And Ian Valentino, who's one of their draft analysts and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
He ranked the top 10 or top 25 wide receivers in the league through 10 weeks of this season.
Okay.
And it's an interesting list. There's some names on here that I wouldn't have expected to see on here, and I don't know that he's right.
Mm-hmm.
But let's
buzz through it.
Let's have that discussion. So at number 20,
I would hope there's a Steeler on there, and I bet there's a Raven on there.
Yeah. At number 25, he has Chris Olave of the Saints.
It'd be a tough one to rank, but I do think he's one of the best 25 receivers walking the planet right now.
Yeah. At number 24, he has our guy Lab McConkey of the Chargers.
Wow. I mean, this is a tough list. I mean, 25 is not many. I mean, just think about fantasy football. The top 36 are pretty strong. I mean, I'm not sure if I'd have McConkey in the top 25 yet. I mean, that's a tough list.
That's a tough one to crack.
Yeah.
At 23, he has Alec Pierce of the Colts. I would disagree with that strongly.
I think he's the fourth best receiver on his team.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Mitchell's a better player and is going to eat into his playing time. Pittman hasn't been himself, but Pittman, when right, and Downs are better than he is too.
Just because the quarterback is not throwing the football to Pittman doesn't mean he's not the guy that you try to stop.
No, right.
Or Downs for that matter.
Right.
I haven't looked at the rest of the list.
Movers and I don't see that with Pierce.
At 22, Jackson Smith and Jigba with the Seahawks.
Might be a little early for him too. I mean, but I think he's definitely trending that direction.
Yeah. I mean, he's on pace to catch almost 100 passes.
Mm-hmm. He's had a couple big games. I like him a lot.
At 21, Devontae Smith from the Eagles.
Quality player, no question.
At 20, Amon-Ra St. Brown, all the way down at 20.
Really low. I mean, I don't think he'd be in my top 5, but the top 5's elite at that position. He'd be my top 10.
He's catching 81.8% of his targets.
I'd say I don't think Goff has hardly any incompletions when targeting him.
Yeah.
I know there was a streak going into last game.
Crazy.
Yeah.
81.8. That's, I mean, they're not deep.
I mean, that's too low.
They're not deep shots, but they're
still
certainly.
But he's physical and got some Hines Ward to his game.
Yeah, absolutely. At 19, Cortland Sutton with the Broncos.
He wouldn't be in my top 25. No. I think he's a high-end number 2 complimentary piece.
Yeah.
That's getting featured there.
At 18, Marvin Harrison Jr. with the Cardinals.
Too early.
He's not there yet.
He's not there yet. No, too early.
At 17, DK Metcalf with the Seahawks.
That sounds about right. He's a certain type of receiver, obviously, but sure.
At 16, I would love to talk to Ian about this list.
There's a couple suspect ones already.
None more suspect than this. Rashad Bateman of the Ravens.
Wow.
Better than DK Metcalf.
Wow.
Better than Amon-Ra St. Brown.
All right. He's having an okay season. They're happy with him. He was.
Are they? Because they went out and traded for Deontay Johnson a couple weeks ago. Haven't used him yet.
No, they haven't used him.
But they didn't do that because they love Rashad Bateman.
Sure. He should not be anywhere close to this list.
16th best receiver in the league. Come on, man.
Yeah, and I like Bateman. I think he's a quality starter.
Yeah.
But he's not one of the top 25.
15, Chris Godwin.
Yeah, a really good year.
Yeah.
Unfortunately,
it's over.
Right.
14, Darnell Mooney with the Falcons.
No. Also having a really good year.
Really good year.
Always a singled.
Yeah.
He's a complimentary piece. There's a lot of guys that drive the bus at this position that, not the complimentary piece guys.
Yeah.
That you scheme up or,
13, Brian Thomas Jr. with the Jaguars.
Too soon, but I think he's had a better year than McConkey or Harrison.
12, George Pickens.
Wow. I think that's fair.
Yeah, I think that's fair. That's what he is.
I would put him over Metcalf. I'd have St. Brown ahead of him.
If you look at his numbers right now,
I don't even think his numbers tell the story, but the numbers are telling.
He's on pace right now for 75 catches for 1,207 yards and 4 touchdowns. With Russell Wilson at quarterback over the last 3 games.
Big spike, yeah.
14 catches for 276 yards and 2 touchdowns. If you extrapolate that over the course of a 17-game season, it would be 79 catches. So the catches aren't different.
No, they're not. It's just the depth of target and all that stuff, too.
1,564 yards and 11 touchdowns.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy.
It's a stark difference.
You know how I'm a big fan of yards per route run.
Yeah.
For the whole season, Justin Jefferson's the only one ahead of him. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a good company to keep, yeah. No, he's a budding star.
Yes.
He is this is 12. If we were doing a fantasy segment, that would be a wide receiver 1 territory.
He's also 3rd in yards per reception. I filtered everyone with 50 targets or more.
Yeah.
That's 50 receivers. He's at the top of the list in many categories.
And I think even that, and if you look at Mike Clay's, as we did earlier in the week, we looked at Mike Clay's fantasy chart.
Yeah.
In terms of matchups. The matchups they face the rest of the way are the worst the best in the league. If you're
best for Pickens, yeah.
Best for Pickens,
yeah.
For opposing wide receivers, because you got Baltimore twice.
Yeah, which is terrible pass defense.
You got Cincinnati. Philadelphia has not been great overall, and
that's enough right in itself, right?
Yeah,
and you're not Surtain and Terrell and those guys. He had some tough ones early on.
Yeah, so it should.
I also think it's very noteworthy that I bet he's at the top of the league in defensive pass interference, yardage, certainly touchdowns called back, things like that. There's a site, Fantasy Points, that I check out. They call this expected points or expected fantasy points. And he's the one that should have. He's had the most taken away from him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which makes sense.
Absolutely.
I think
he's a real breakout player.
He is
he's always flashed, but now he's becoming a star.
Very consistently.
Yeah.
And I think his over/under on touchdown catches this year was 4.5.
Wow.
And he didn't have one in the first 6 games of the season.
He has the most end zone targets in the league.
He's going to double that total before the season's over.
Yeah,
he might have 3 touchdown catches on Sunday.
I don't know if he's going to go Jamar Chase on them, but
he's certainly capable.
We're going to be very attentive to his DFS.
I guarantee if we were doing Ravens Nation radio this week, we'd be like, all right, how are the Ravens stopping George Pickens?
Yeah. He's gotten to that point.
Yeah.
Yep. So I think that's where he belongs on the list and probably going up.
At
that's
11.
A tough list.
Yeah, it's a tough list to crack. Well, not for some, apparently.
Unless you're Rashad Bateman.
We haven't even seen the whole thing yet. We'll get to that, who he left off of here. At 11 is Drake London.
I agree. I think he's a really, really good player, too.
Yeah. 10,
It's a good draft class of receivers.
Malik Neighbors. That might be a little high for me.
It's a little high, but
he's not better than George Pickens or
London or St. Brown, but he should be on the list. I mean, he's my favorite rookie thus far. He's probably the only rookie I'd have on the list.
At 9, Jaden Reed. Now,
that's too rich.
I love Jaden Reed.
Right. He's a very good young player.
But he's got 36 catches and 3 touchdowns this season. Come on, man.
And I think he's the best of the Packers receivers.
I do, too.
This isn't a Pierce situation.
Yeah, but he's not the 9th best receiver in the league.
No.
At 8, A.J. Brown.
I'd have him higher. He might be top 3 or 4.
At 7, Nico Collins.
Had the best year of anyone. Yeah, I'm there with him.
6 is Garrett Wilson.
100%.
5, Zay Flowers.
Oh. Good player,
Does
obviously.
Ian live in Baltimore?
Right. They have the best pair of receivers, clearly in his mind,
Better than
Philadelphia,
Come
right.
on, man.
And I'm sure Evans isn't going to get mentioned. But
Evans isn't getting mentioned. Come on.
I don't have a problem with him being in the top 25.
No, I don't either. Zay Flowers is a great player.
He really is. He's great after the catch. He's going to be a problem. But he's part of a great offense.
But he's not. He's no more the 5th best wide receiver in the league than Rashad Bateman is the 16th best.
No, right. I mean, he must live in Baltimore. Or I don't get that.
I don't get that at all.
No, come on.
At 4 is CeeDee Lamb.
Yeah, to no fault of his own, his numbers are down a little. But and they're going to continue to drop probably. But
3 is Terry McLaurin.
He's having an awesome season.
Yeah.
Really dug into him, of course, last week, and he's benefiting from having a legit quarterback.
Yeah.
That's still too high.
It's
still too high.
So this does tell me
maybe he lives in
the greater
yeah.
D.C., Baltimore area. I guarantee he does.
If he was 9 or 10, I would be like,
I'd have no issue with it.
That's cool. Yeah. That's who always played.
2 is Justin Jefferson.
Okay. I mean, I have no problem with him not being 1, but it only leaves Chase or Tyreek Hill.
Tyreek Hill did not make the list.
Which means somebody's not on the list.
Yeah.
Right. It hasn't been his finest year.
No. But it's not their fault.
Right. I mean,
they
if
played
you ask,
basically without a quarterback for half the season.
Right. I mean, I think going into the year, I thought Tyreek or Hill was the best receiver in
Tyreek or Hill.
Or Jefferson.
So you're saying it was Tyreek Hill is what you're saying.
And actually, he was my vote. I mean, I did my own list, and I had him 1. I had Jefferson 2. He's no different now.
Yeah, I'm just looking at his bio here. Ian, no offense, man. You need to
reevaluate this.
You need to.
Pierce? And Pierce and Bateman don't belong on the list.
Pierce and Bateman
some of those guys
should not be in the top 25.
In the top 25.
I mean, come on.
So he had what? He had Jamar Chase 1?
Yeah.
I get that, too.
I get it.
I mean, again, I'm not going to fight with
He just went off last week.
Yeah.
Hard to not put him. I mean, but come on.
I mean, there's some names that are not listed that are really, really. I mean, Debo and Ayuk and
Ayuk's hurt, and I get it.
I get it, right? But I'm just talking about names that are like clearly better than Bateman. I mean, Nakua and Cobb. But I'm just scanning every team.
Justine Bateman might be more
DJ Moore
relevant on that list.
Right, Amari Cooper and
there's an old school
Waddle.
reference for you. Jason Bateman has been more relevant.
Yes,
in the last 5 years.
That's Jason's sister, for those that don't know.
Yeah. I just want to take a look here. So we're going to roll through the leading receivers in the league right now. How do you want to do it, yardage or receptions?
Doesn't matter.
All right, we'll go yardage.
Yeah.
Chase is 1, Justin Jefferson 2.
Okay.
McLaurin is 3. Did he just go off this list? Garrett Wilson is 4. Now, Garrett Wilson already has 100 targets this year.
Yeah, I say he was leading the league in targets.
He is, and he still does.
Yeah, I think he still does.
By a wide margin.
Yeah, even with Adam showing up.
Zay Flowers.
I just traded for him in our league.
I saw that.
Yeah,
just in time to play me this week.
Aha.
Bastard. Zay Flowers is 5.
Mm-hmm.
Darnell Mooney is 6. CeeDee Lamb is 7. Drake London is 8. George Pickens is 9.
His list isn't much different than this list.
Jaden Reed is 10.
Uh-huh.
Brian Thomas is 11. Malik Neighbors tied for 11th with 607
He missed
yards.
2 games.
He missed 2 games.
Yeah.
Chris Godwin is 14th. Cortland Sutton is 15th. This is all he did.
Yeah, right. I say he moved him a little.
Yeah. DK Metcalf is 16th, tied actually with Jackson Smith and Jigba, but DK Metcalf has missed 2 games.
Mm-hmm.
Nico Collins, still 18th.
At least he bumped Nico up to
and he's missed
right.
4 or 5 games.
A.J. Brown's another one that he...
A.J. Brown's one that he bumped up. Khalil Shakir is 22nd.
I mean, he's better than some dudes on the list.
Khalil Shakir has 48 catches on 54 targets.
Mm-hmm.
Think about that.
Like, if he was a Steeler, we'd love him.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I like his style of game. I mean, he's not a true one, but he's better than Bateman or Pierce.
Amon-Ra St. Brown is 23rd. Pierce is 24th. This is all he did.
That's what happened.
Bateman is 25th.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's just grab – those are the exact same 25 names?
Marvin Harrison is 26th.
Okay.
So pretty darn close.
Pretty darn close.
I mean, Juwan Jennings in 7 games has 497 yards.
Oh, then he should probably be fourth on the list.
Yeah, he should. Lab McConkey's the last guy on there. He's 30th with 492
He's
yards.
the last one.
But and Devontae Smith is 31st, but he missed a game.
I mean, I understand not having like an Evans on there or the injured dudes if you're just going to talk about where they're at now. But that doesn't mean that they're any worse.
But he did have guys like Chris Godwin on there.
Yeah, yeah.
Who's out for the year.
Nico missed a big stretch.
Yeah.
You know.
Just weird.
Yeah.
Weird.
Yeah. I like doing lists, just talking through them, and people can criticize mine too, but that one was not so great.
Yeah, I'm just looking. The names on here aren't the names that you typically see, though.
Oh.
Like Devontae Adams right now has 415 receiving yards. Jacoby Myers has more receiving yards right now.
I mean, Adams should be in the top 25.
Yeah, he's still a good football player.
Yeah.
Like,
if that's all we're judging.
If all we're doing is going through the yardage,
like,
I could have done that. Like,
yeah.
We just did it. The Chris Olave is 50th. I don't know how he made the list, ranked 50th, and you passed over some of these other guys. You passed over the Josh Downs of the Tyreek Hill.
How you take Pierce over Downs.
I don't get it.
Yeah, I mean, he's made some big plays.
Yeah.
But if we just did a list of who do we want to line up against the Ravens with opposite Pickens on their best, and including Evans and the hurt guys, that list would be a lot different than that.
Yeah. I didn't realize that Trey McBride has not scored this season.
Oh, really? I didn't either. He's having a great year.
His 0 there in the touchdown just sticks out like a sore thumb.
Is he the leading receiver amongst tight ends?
No. You like to use the amongst words, I've noticed.
Amongst. You edit my stuff, too.
I edit your stuff. I always take the amongst out.
What do you replace it with?
Among.
Oh.
Why do we need amongst?
Okay.
This isn't like 1700 England.
What was the word?
Doth thou protest so greatly?
Okay. Maybe I'll get rid of the ST on a couple of them before I send them into you tonight. Yeah.
Keep me on my toes. Actually, the leader in receiving yards for tight ends is none other than Brock Bowers.
That adds up. Yeah. Okay. I was thinking somebody that wouldn't been on a bye yet, but still, he's the volume's huge.
Yeah, it's 580 receiving yards. Mm-hmm. And even at that, he's only got 2 touchdowns. So
yeah, they're a bad team, too.
Yeah. Just a little interesting thing there.
Sure. It's a good discussion. Yeah. I don't have to agree with the list.
Russell Wilson. We got a little real quickly here. Right now, Lamar Jackson leads the NFL in passer rating, 123.2. That would be a record.
It would be the best ever if he keeps it up. Right. It's nuts.
Second is Joe Burrow at 108.1.
Mm-hmm.
Third is Russell Wilson at 105.9.
Totally get it, yeah.
What are the Browns doing? Like, all we heard, the Steelers are going to have
I see what you're saying.
For 3 years now, Steelers have the worst quarterback situation in the AFC North.
Yeah.
Maybe not.
Maybe not. I mean, definitely not. Definitely not.
Definitely not.
Right. I mean, I would take Fields over their guys.
Yeah. Jackson and Burrow are having ridiculous years. Ridiculous years.
I almost feel bad for Burrow. I mean, like, him and Chase are putting the team on their back.
Yeah. Russell Wilson's right there with them.
Absolutely. You'll see amongst quarterbacks that played 3 or more games, he's at top of the list in a lot of categories. Yeah.
So just a little aside there, folks. When we're talking about what Russell Wilson could be, this is again, I don't want to continue to beat this horse, but I mean, this is what we saw in OTAs. This is what we saw in training camp when he was out there.
And I'm trying to find it because it's another one. It's like Lamar. It's okay since he has 22 games in a row with a touchdown pass.
So
even though he was sat down for the last 2 games last year,
in which he's played.
In which he's played. And Lamar's second was 17. He's got a 32-9 TD to interception ratio since the start of last year. The only one that's better is Lamar, who's got 48-9.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's who he's hanging with in terms of stats.
This is why you make that move if you're Mike Tomlin, so you can compete with the Lamar Jacksons and the Joe Burrows.
Yeah, and I frankly, I hope we see Fields in this game. But you said it when it was made, like, the Ravens are your biggest rival. They're the biggest competition for the division, and they can't stop the pass. Yeah. Give me my best passer.
Yeah, George Pickens could just go nuts in this game.
He could, and I know we're out of the fantasy segment, but if you start Russell Wilson, I don't think you'll be unhappy.
No.
He throws touchdown passes.
Yeah, I'll be interested to see what the over-under is on DraftKings in terms of his passing yards in this game.
Yeah, or passing touchdowns. I mean,
all
the metrics
they're
for the Ravens are horrendous.
Funnel.
Yeah,
just
horrendous.
Horrendous against the pass. But we got to get to a break. He is the Matt Williamson. I am Dale Lolley. You're listening to The Drive here on the Steelers Audio Network. Matt and I will be back to finish up the show right after this. Welcome back. I am Dale Lolley. He is the Matt Williamson, and this is The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network. And every Wednesday, I go into the locker room when the Steelers are first back, from in the practice facility, and I talk to somebody.
Yep, pull somebody aside.
Little chat with them. Today, that guy was Justin Fields.
Yep, I bet it was an enjoyable chat. I'm a big fan.
Yeah, and so we talked about the dynamic between he and Russell Wilson, and the kind of the history that those two had with each other, and what he's learning from this whole experience, and some good stuff here. So let's hear what Justin Fields had to say.
Your relationship with him, you guys have both talked about that a lot. When did that exactly come to pass, and how did it come to pass?
What do you mean?
In terms of, well, you guys said you texted back and forth even when you were back in college. How did that come about?
I'm not sure. I don't even remember, to be honest with you. So, yeah, I have no idea. It was so long ago.
But that, obviously, you guys knew each other. You knew were on friendly terms with each other. You looked at him as a kind of a mentor type guy in terms of,
for sure,
what he was doing in the league.
Yeah, for sure. Especially when I was a younger guy. He was one of my favorite quarterbacks growing up. So definitely cool. Being in the same room as him. Being able to learn from him and stuff like that. It's been good.
Did that help the relationship when you came here? And obviously, you guys knew each other. You had a relationship and.
Did it help? I mean, I think it was, it wasn't like a brand new guy, so it was kind of, we just skipped a few stages, if that makes sense. Like, we didn't have to, first time meet each other, so, yeah.
Obviously, when you got two guys who, there's only one quarterback job, that can sometimes cause combativeness or things of that nature. I've seen it over the years, talked to different guys about it. You guys don't seem to have that relationship, though. It seems like you've stayed close and tight.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, I don't really understand when guys do have that relationship, because I'm never going to, hate on a man for, having success. And I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. So, I know how it feels, and like we kind of go back to, it's, we all are fighting for the same thing. We just want to win. So, of course, in my position, it sucks not being able to, go out there and play. But I'm just trying to look at, this time of my life, as a positive, as a, just try to get the most out of it, if that makes sense. And just learn as much as I can. And, when I do get on the field, just prepare now for it and, continue to get better and work on my craft.
Has he been helpful in a lot of this stuff,
sure.
showing you, here's what I saw in this? And, I mean, that conversation, I'm sure, takes place a lot.
I mean, it happens a lot. Every game, every practice, if he throws the ball that I wouldn't have thrown, he kind of gives me a reasoning why and stuff like that. So I usually ask him, questions like that, for sure.
Do you feel like that can be beneficial to you at some point in your career as well?
I mean, yeah, just picking his brain, seeing why he does, certain things. So most definitely.
Stylistically, I mean, obviously, at one point you guys were very stylistically close.
Yeah.
Do you see his maturation process as he's not running as much as he used to, and is kind of more pocket oriented? He can still do those kind of things, but do you think, okay, I can play a long time in this game if I kind of?
No, for sure. And I mean, I've had to adjust my game, based off of, my status or my injury status for a certain game where I knew I couldn't run as much. Like earlier this year, I got, banged up early in the games and, just knew in my head that I wasn't going to be as efficient in the run game. And, he's doing the same thing. He's gotten a little bit older, probably doesn't run as fast as he used to run. So, his game has evolved. So, yeah.
Thanks, Justin.
Yes, sir.
That was Steelers quarterback Justin Fields with me earlier today, and
good stuff.
Good stuff from him. And when you, as he said, you don't like to get taken out of the lineup. Everybody wants to play.
He's competitive.
He's
proud,
competitive and proud,
right,
but I think he has the right attitude about this whole thing. Just learn as much as you can from this situation. And if he'd have stayed in Chicago, his situation probably would have been worse. He wouldn't have played at all.
You wouldn't think. And they're falling apart at the seams as we speak. And I'm sure the organization, Coach Tomlin, Arthur Smith, have all been very open with Justin of, this is our plan, and you're part of it, but Russell's our starter.
Yeah. Do you think we see some of him this week?
Maybe.
That would be that curveball I would throw at the Ravens.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think you need to run more. I mean, it's going to be a pass-happy script, I would imagine, no matter how the game goes. But it's a ace up your sleeve you haven't played yet this year.
Yeah. Just something different.
Mm-hmm.
Just to put it out there.
And he's fully healthy now, and, I think it's not a bad move.
Yeah, absolutely. But, Matt, that's going to do it for our show today.
Okay, good stuff.
Absolutely.
We had a busy Wednesday here.
Absolutely. I want to thank Steelers running back Jaylen Warren for joining us earlier today. We want to thank Bob Labriola, the Dean of Doom, for hopping on with us as he does every Wednesday. But for my partner, Matt Williamson, for Justin Miller here on site, running the Justin Miller hotline, for Tyler Vittmeyer, making sure our video gets out there on YouTube. Please leave us your comments or ask questions there. I check those out daily. I'm Dale Lolley. We thank you for listening to this edition of The Drive on the Steelers Audio Network.
Steelers football happens here. The Pittsburgh Steelers Audio Network.